The werewolves and the vampires. The oldest war in history. Many of you watching know of my relation to the lichen, as I am a lichen myself. Now, before people think I'm deluded for thinking that, well, the whole thing about werewolves, lichens, is that it's very different from what you see in the movies. That is just a watered down version of what the real thing is. The real thing is very different, and yes, shape-shifting is involved, but it's very much on the astral level, meaning your physical body doesn't so much shape-shift, it's more your astral body. The closest thing you can get to your physical body shape-shifting is your behaviour. And when the full moon strikes, this enables that power, the lichen power that you have, is at its most intense, and is at its most powerful as well. Now, there's very many different techniques of engaging in a lichen, and not everyone can do it, because not everyone is a lichen. It's something you're, I think, born with. The Uthanar, Woden's secret shamanic warriors, were the lichens, or are the lichens, because they still exist today. And Uthanar is a warrior spirituality. I don't like to use the term spirituality because it's been so conflated now, but it's a warrior's path, and it's part of the Wodenic path, even though not everyone on the Wodenic path is necessarily Uthanar, because it's a warrior martial form of magic, which not everyone necessarily has to practice. And it's not really something you choose, it's something you're chosen by the All-Father himself. So now that I've introduced you to the lichen for the meanwhile, I'm going to more talk about now the vampire, or the Drackle. Now, when we get into the whole point, I'm not saying that the lichens are the good guys and the vampires are the bad guys. It's a lot more complicated than that, because not everyone who's a vampire is necessarily evil, or at least they're not evil consciously. However, all vampires suffer from neurosis or narcissism or psychopathology. When you go into a room or something and you are there and you really don't want to be in there because you feel your energy is draining, that's probably because there's a vampire in there. Now, they might not know that they're doing it, that's the thing. A lot of probably vampires walking around today are unaware, but they all have one thing in common: they all feel dead inside, and so they need to vamp off other people's energy in order to fill that void within themselves. And usually you find that vampires lack self reflection. This is why in the books, the movies about them, they can't see their reflection in the mirror because they lack self reflection. The ones that are aware that they're vampires are very skilled at vamping off other people's energy, and they can astrally shapeshift into usually vampiric like creatures like bats and snakes in order to use it for that purpose. In fact, if you look at like secret societies like Skull and Bones, for example, the whole ritual of going into the coffin and then shapeshifting into a bat or a snake, something of that nature, in order to then go into the astral and feed off other people astrally. Now, the werewolf does a similar thing to this, and it's going into the trance state where you lie down and you shapeshift into a werewolf. Shapeshift into a wolf, specifically. And you can travel the astral that way. I use it either to fight off certain malevolent spirits that are in my space, or I use it to travel to other dimensions, other realms, in order to gain knowledge and wisdom, basically for shamanic purposes. So the whole idea of it's about being aware that you are one of these things, and how to harness that to your and then work on it from there. There's lots of many different techniques for it. A lot of the techniques I use are in alignment with what I also practice called ᚼVa. Now, I would say that ᚼVa and lycanthropy are very much interlinked. I would say that if you practice ᚼVa and you have a natural inclination to it, then it's probably most likely you are a lycan if you also have some sort of warrior spirit or wolf totem that's been with you for throughout your life. So those are things to look out for, and it's about going into that kind of seething state. When I do the wolf dance, it puts me into that ᚼVa state, and I start sweating and boiling from within, and that kind of puts me into another state of consciousness. I also use a ganda, which is a wand or a staff, which I use for a weapons dance. And ganda in Old Norse, it also means wand and staff as a translation, but it also means wolf or serpent, which is interesting. And when I use my staff, I will wield it around myself and then release, project it, project it, and then out of that projection becomes my wolf astral, my fetch, which takes the form of a wolf, which then is released out and then later comes back to me and reveals to me certain secrets and knowledge and wisdom, or information on certain things that's going on in the higher and lower realms. So there are other things to look out for. What I would say is also that the vampire supremacy is also in decline. It had more, they had more power, say, about 100 years ago than they do now. And that the reason why is because we're discovering like more things about how vampirism works. If you look into Michael Tazarian's work on psychic vampirism, I think this is a part of it. Also, we're discovering more about psychopathology is becoming more talked about, and narcissism and neuroticism in general. So this is kind of like revealing, or like looking behind the curtain and decodifying what the vampire really is, which is then exposing them, and that's dismantling more of their power. And now that this is happening, that the playing field is equal for the Lycans to come up. Because remember, the Lycans during the Middle Ages and up until the early modern era were hunted down, were seen as a threat to the church power, to Christendom at the time, because the people running Christendom couldn't fully understand it, because it's a very ancient shamanic European practice, and also because they were scared that could bring paganism back, because it's a form of power that they can't fully control. This is why in Christendom they give us the image of the sheep and the shepherd, because they want us to be like a sheep and fear the wolf, instead of realizing that we are really the wolf. We are the wolves. We're not sheep. And they don't want us realizing that. And I would say probably the universal animal totem for Europe is the wolf, out of all of them. Because every single Indo-European culture, the wolf is a central part. You look at how many gods and goddesses of European origin, or Indo-European origin, are associated with the wolf, you'd be surprised. Several of them in all the different pantheons are. And that's because the wolf was highly venerated, because we are like wolves, essentially. Well, some of us more than others. And those some of us more than others, like myself, and probably even some of you watching this right now, are the Lycans, are the werewolves. And it's about harnessing that beast within. Because the werewolf energy can be very chaotic if not tamed properly. That's why we have that's why we have the Fenrir and the teachings of Fenrir. The teachings of Fenrir is about how we can harness that wolf energy, that wolf power within us. So, getting back to the vampires for a minute. The vampires, interestingly, do not have their origin in Europe. That's a lot later on, during the Middle Ages. Before that, their actual origins go right back to Sumeria, interestingly enough. Not many people know about this. And they usually are inserted within the ruling bloodlines during the Middle Ages, but probably go back before that to classical antiquity in some ways, and even further back to that, to the Sumerian kings. but not necessarily all vampires are in the ruling elite. There are ones on the lower levels as well. If you probably have met a vampire at least, once in your life before. You might not have known it. It's more of a feeling you get around them more than a certain appearance. So they're more, but once you kind of feel that draining of energy that they have, that's an indication that that person you're around is a vampire. And vampires can be quite manipulative. Like I said, especially the ones who are acknowledged that they are vampires. And the thing is, all of this was, up until about the 1800s, all this stuff, all this like, all these so-called entities, these supernatural entities like werewolves, vampires, fairies, elves, trolls, ghosts, etc., etc., were all like common knowledge to people. They weren't seen as like just like fiction for entertainment. That was something that more came about during the 20th century. That they were common knowledge to people. People were fully aware that they existed. It's just when we got into the 1800s and the Enlightenment era, all that we can perceive with the so-called five senses fully was seen as not real. So it's been this Enlightenment materialist scientism paradigm that has made us forget all of that. And there's a danger in doing that because you aren't aware of certain forces that are unseen, or at least on the surface unseen. And I can confirm within myself all of this is very real. And this is not me just saying this for entertainment or because I want to sound, I don't know, different, or because I'm, just bored or something. No, this stuff, I've had so many confirmations now, I can't not say this is real. It all is. And it's interesting because one of my greatest fears when I was younger, when I was about probably age 5 up until age 9, 10, was the idea of actually shape-shifting into a werewolf. And I know why it was now, because it was something I was going to have to face sometime in the future, which would be a terrifying aspect of my own personality that I would have to harness within myself and have to control, because it can be very fucking dangerous if you don't know how to harness it. So this is what I'm saying now, it's not a joke, it's not a game, and the war between the werewolves and vampires is an ongoing war. And has been going on for millennia. Will it ever stop? I don't know. I'd rather have be at peace most of the time, but if the vampires bring it to me, well, I'm going to have to fight back, aren't I? So that's all the information I've got to say on this for now, and I'll be back with more videos. I know I've been away for a while. I've been working on doing my own self-work for a while, and I also recommend you to check out the website www.valkanicoven.com. Thank you.